Yeah, I think maybe a good way to like caveat into this segment would be to talk about what I was telling you. I think it was last week or the week before last about how I like fell in love with movies.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, so I
So
grew up
yeah,
in
go ahead. My bad.
what's up?
Because
Oh
you're
no,
it
you're
was it
fine.
was it was Iron Man, right?
Yeah, it was Iron Man.
Mm.
But I grew up in a household that I would describe as religiously repressive. Like members of the church that my family was in growing up, like they weren't permitted to do a lot of things because a lot of things were like deemed evil or sinful, in a very broad sense. Like, kids get into Pokemon in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and I wanted to play Pokemon. But the thing is, to them, Pokemon didn't mean pocket monsters, it meant pocket demons, right?
Right.
So, like, there was a lot of content that I just couldn't enjoy, even though peers at school were getting into it. But luckily, the church that they were in like evolved a little bit to where they eventually allowed people to watch movies and own television sets at home. And this was like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was like the year 2000 when they did this.
Mhm.
So finally, my parents were able to get a television set in the place. And, like any other kid, I ended up watching like the Batman animated series. And I thought TV was like God's gift to mankind,
Wow.
no pun intended. But we weren't permitted to go to the movie theater. Like the logic was, even though we're watching movies at home, if we go to a movie theater, we can't effectively censor the content. We can't fast forward through bad scenes, and also it would like send an image to people there that we aren't as different, like with our faith, like we're not as holy because we're there at this sinful location.
Mhm.
Really odd logic. But I finally was able to go see a film in the cinema for the first time when I was in seventh grade. So I was 13, 14 years old.
Mm.
And it was the introduction to the MCU. It was Iron Man. And dude, it was the IMAX. So, like going to your regular theater, 4K, it looks phenomenal. It's way better than your TV at home. But you go see something in the IMAX and like you can see the detail on like the things in the background. Like
Right.
it's just so mind blowingly great. The audio sounds fantastic. And it was just an experience that I will never forget because it felt like oh no, I was doing this bad thing that I shouldn't, but I was finally allowed to do it. So there wasn't the guilt associated with it. And
Right.
I just had a wonderful time with, like, it was with my entire school class. There was like 300 people there.
Did your
Uh,
parents know?
I'm sorry?
Did your parents know?
Oh, yeah. My mom
Okay.
actually, like, I think
Nice.
she realized that at that age, that it was like harmful to
Mhm.
tell me no when everybody else was doing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Actually, I've never been to IMAX theater yet, which is kind of crazy because I'm so I'm so into like media. Like so like one I kind of want to ask you, right? What's your favorite IMAX experience, and like what does the IMAX do to set it apart from like a regular theater experience?
I would describe the IMAX as atmospheric, grand.
Mm.
Like, every time you go see something in front of the big screen, it's called that for a reason. It's that much better than the small screen, your TV at home. But I feel
Right.
like every time it gets bigger, which IMAX is the biggest, it is better.
Mhm.
Like, it's just completely enjoyable to go see a movie on a massive screen. And the quality of the image is so crisp, sharp. The colors are incredibly vivid. Like, you really can't put a price on that experience. Well, I guess you can, like about 10, $15
Right.
per ticket, but it's amazing. I highly recommend going to see a film that looks good. Like, I'm not going to pay the extra money to go see a comedy like Seth Rogen film, like
Right.
Paths. I'll go watch that in the regular cinema. But something like Gravity or Interstellar or the new Avatar that's coming
Mhm.
out later this year, like that's something that if there is available seating, I will choose the IMAX over the regular big screen because it just brings a majesty to whatever film you're watching when you are this big and the screen is this big.
Wow. Well, going back to the whole topic at hand, like, so was that Iron Man experience more about that breaking through for your individual development more than the movie itself? because like you said, the IMAX experience does. I mean, from how you're explaining is, it's like you're like this one little pixel on this giant, screen.
Mm-hmm.
So for that to be, was that your very first movie experience?
Not movie, like watching a movie, but at the
Like theater.
theater.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very first. And I think it was. I think you're right in describing it that way because, it was the first time I was starting to be able to branch out on my own and do the things that I actually wanted to do as a young kid, but also to finally feel part of the group, if that makes sense. Like everybody else goes to the cinema, it felt like. So I always wanted to go and I finally got to do it. So it was special because for the first time, like I didn't feel left out. Like I remember whenever I was like in kindergarten, first grade, people would come back from seeing the latest movie in theaters and they would talk about it and they'd be like, did you see it? After asking everybody and everybody's like, oh yeah, I saw it first day. And I would be like, huh, yeah, of course I did. And like, what was your favorite part? And be like, the part
right
where stuff happens.
I feel that.
So I was finally able to, tell people my thoughts after the first day for the first time in my life. And as somebody that appreciates the art of film, like it's most certainly an experience I would never forget.
So I'm curious, do you remember what you were feeling when Iron Man ended and you were just sitting there like, oh my God?
I don't know. Like, I feel like it's very hard to think about the personal experience. And the first Iron Man by itself was a great film, and they immediately established that it had much larger implications in the post-credit scene. Like, I feel like it's probably the first time a lot of people were sitting through the end credits of a movie in anticipation for what came afterward, because Nick Fury comes out, Samuel L. Jackson, who's cool as hell, and he's like, we're starting the Avengers Initiative, and you realize, wow, what I just watched has a pretty big scope. Like, they have a lot coming in the future.
Actually, just on that, did people know about the end credit scene yet? Because I feel like, because there was like a big gap of years where people did not know that these MCU movies had end credit scenes. Like you would see, like you were in that group of people that really knew if you did not leave the movie theater. But now it's like, now that we're in phase 4, you see a whole bunch of people like stay in there. Like people know now, but I was wondering if that was a big lure from like Iron Man 1. Because I
feel like it would have to be that, maybe the internet, because I feel like in 2007 people's internet phones were like Blackberries,
right?
So you know what I mean? Like not everybody could just look up, hey, is there something after the credits? And if you went home, I feel like computers and home internet wasn't as widespread as it is now. So I wouldn't doubt there were people that missed out just because they didn't know. Like you had to stick around through what was that song they played? It's AC/DC, right? It was Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
Yeah. I haven't seen Iron Man 1 in so long. But like, just going off of your story, like I'm the complete opposite, right? So like I've been playing like Grand Theft Auto since I was like 9 years old. Like this stuff I shouldn't have been playing or watching, I've seen very young. And it begged the question for me, right? Looking at the prompts, like media that makes us feel something, right? I wonder how big of an impact age is. So like your experience with Iron Man, you were younger, right? My experience where I like something that made me feel something, right? And I think it's specific to horror movies, right? So I remember I was like about maybe 7 or 8. And then my mom had the great idea to let me watch Paranormal Activity 1. And then I'm watching that on the big TV in my mom's room. And I have never been more afraid of anything in my life. I remember ending that movie, and then I just my little kid brain, like I kept like conjuring up like, oh, there's like a sound in my room. Like for that night when I watched it, I kept hearing stuff and just like, just manifesting that sort of what I just watched. And then like I look back at it now, I think that moment is so in a way like beautiful because that's something that media made me feel, right? And I can never replicate that now because like I'm an adult now, and like for a scary movie to make me feel like I did at that night today, it would need to be something ridiculous. I've seen Hereditary.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen like the big, the top new horror movies, and they've never made me feel that sense of like dread before. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like when you say it's the standard is higher, Like it takes a lot to really put you on edge as an adult by itself, but especially whenever you've seen it all. You know what I mean? Like when you've seen so many movies, television shows, I think you're a little bit desensitized to scenes that are supposed to scare you or supposed to make you feel sad. Like it has to be something genuine, authentic, and to a degree unique to really, hit a connection when sadly a lot of media is just forgettable. Like I'm sure you didn't feel the exact same way watching the most recent Paranormal Activity, as an adult.
When they were trying to make like a whole universe out of the Paranormal Activity movies, like, oh my, like,
they got ambitious.
Really, they're very ambitious. They made a whole like ghost realm. I think that's what the movie was called, like Paranormal Activity Ghost Realm or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to ask you, do you have like a list of like movies, TV shows, or games that made you feel something? And actually, before we go into that, I want to ask you a question. Do you think for media to be truly special, that it needs to make you feel something?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I really do. Like, I was watching the most recent episode of The Boys, right? It's the conclusion to a great season, and it's going to be memorable to me because in the last scene of the show, when, spoiler alert for everybody out there, Homelander kills a protester because they threw, I think it was like a can of soda or something.
Yeah.
I think it was actually like a can of chili. Like, I think they really went all out with the meat. A can of beans or something. And Homelander kills this guy and has no repercussions, and in fact is celebrated by his fans that are there for committing cold-blooded murder in broad daylight. And the realization hits him, like he's finally hit that point. I can do whatever I want. And his laugh. And then the kid that he's essentially grooming starts to smile because they're like, you know what, I can do this too. Like this is acceptable. I feel like that's so eerie. It was so timely because it reminded me when Trump said I could just go down like Fifth Avenue or whatever and shoot somebody in the face and I wouldn't lose any followers. And I think that's what they were going for. But to see that play out with everything the show built up, I felt something different. I felt uneasy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I was like, oh my God, like this, I'm watching probably one of the most evil characters I've ever seen depicted in anything. And they are using real life inspirations for this character. And I feel like that made me feel something. And that makes it, not so forgettable. Because if I watch a horror film that I feel like nothing, or any film in general, but I'm going to, kind of make fun of horror films because I feel like a lot of them can be forgettable nowadays.
Yeah.
And they go through the motions. You're just like, it was a nice little relaxation time, but you won't even remember anything about it. You won't remember the characters. You won't remember the director's name. It'll just be another blip, like a TikTok video,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And while I agree with you, I kind of wish I didn't, because for me, I mean, I guess, so like I said, for something to be great, it needs us to make us feel something. But I feel like that also takes away from those projects that like don't necessarily make you feel like a huge amount of emotion, but are still like, there's still things that you can appreciate, right? I'm trying to think of a media that's like that, but I'm like, I guess that's testament to you, right? To where it's saying like, it's more so forgettable if it doesn't make you have like an emotion to it, right?
Well, I don't think everything is for everybody. And it does suck. Like I absolutely hate, talking trash on like films, books, songs, etc. because I know that there's artists and people that put a lot of passion into it, and it does not feel so great to tell them, hey, that's ass. Like it's terrible,
Yeah.
Like it really, it's like telling your like rapper friend from high school that you can tell is just not gonna make it. Like, hey, maybe that song just wasn't it. It didn't do it for me. It's not a good feeling. Even whenever you're dealing with really famous people, I don't feel good about like necessarily being critical because you never know, they could be on Twitter and take what you said to heart, even though you're just random Joe Blow Schmo. That doesn't feel good, but that doesn't mean we should be less critical. Because I do think a lot of people, they work most of their lives or they're sleeping, and the time you have to yourself to enjoy yourself is special. So I'll still be critical because if somebody's like, hey, I have so much free time, how should I be using it? I'll be like, yeah, don't listen to that song or watch that movie. It sucks.
Exactly.
This is better.
I feel that. But moving forward, I wanted to get, if you had a top 5 list or a list of things that made you feel a certain emotion, I would love to hear it, and we'll go back and forth with that.
I'll do one we've been talking about recently. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Okay. And I think it's kind of interesting. I was just saying, not everything is for everybody, but Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is an Asian American film. Like, it is very much written for that audience to connect immediately. And I'm a white dude, so what do I have like connecting me to this film? But there's obviously like universal themes in that film and jokes that I can still appreciate. But what I felt watching that film was, I don't know, like an internal battle with nihilism. Like when you read like a lot of doomy headlines so much because we have our phones with us, we're both journalists, so we understand like, sometimes you go cover things that can make you not feel so great about what's going on around you, or you have to read a lot of media that makes you feel not so awesome. You feel very nihilist. You can feel like nothing ultimately matters, that you are insignificant in the totality of history, in the universe. So what's the point? What's the point of like trying personally, trying for other people? And it can get pretty hard. And that film tackled that topic from 2 different perspectives. The nihilist perspective of, oh, nothing matters, give up, go into a gloom or despair, or a nihilism that accepts that if nothing matters, what actually does matter is the time that you spend here with others, with your family, with your friends. And I thought that was so beautifully done. Like, it kind of reminded me of a similar feeling I got watching the Lord of the Rings films, when Gandalf is saying, like, not all hope is lost. Hope is a huge theme in those films. And I got a lot of that from Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, that no matter how negative things can feel, there's always hope, as long as you have people in the world that kind of give it a light. And in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, it was the mother that was more positive with the nihilism, trying to rescue her daughter from despair.
Right.
And that's the power of love that she used to get that across. So I connected immediately to that film. Like, lines that were just, I guess little quote lines that they threw in there, like, have to make the movie sound smart, but I'm just bawling my eyes out as they're saying it. Like, whenever the dad is talking about, like, well, when things suck, just be kind. Like, why can't we just be kind to each other? I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out. Like, oh my God, I feel that so much. Like, why can't we just be kinder to each other?
Right. Even though, I wouldn't say that movie made me feel something, I can definitely see where those moments kick in, right? Especially, I remember watching it, and for some reason that rock scene where everything is just sort of diluted to just simple rocks, and they're just having that conversation, that really hit me in that, because it's like, for me, it kind of just an allegory to like, when you boil things down, we really are more similar than what we think. Like, stop complicating the really heavy stuff and just exists, right? But for me, it made me feel something, right? I want to bundle these 2, right? So on my list, I made a little top 5. There's 3 anime. Which, are you a fan of anime, Caleb? Or have you what's like the most recent anime thing you've watched?
I feel like this is kind of like a sad thing because of recent events, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, the original series.
Okay, I respect that. But I have 3 anime, 1 game, and 1 movie. So to bundle these 2, it's the game The Last of Us 2, and it's the anime Vinland Saga. So both of these projects have to deal with the theme of revenge, and until I've experienced both of these projects, I haven't appreciated that theme of revenge until I've seen those things, right? Because, a revenge story can be very like, okay, this is the revenge, well, I'm getting revenge, and then the character perfectly gets everything they want at the end of it. But these projects depict the theme of revenge so well in that on that journey of revenge, it gets messier. Like when you started off, you're pretty clean, right? Like you have your journey and you have why you want to do what you want to do. But at the end of these stories, the characters involved go through so much and lose so much to get this one thing where when you're at the end of the story, it's just so minute in the sense of everything that happened to them. And see, these haven't made me cry, but they've made me feel like just like, wow, like this is a huge weight. Because like for me, I can kind of relate in that I never been on like some vendetta revenge plot thing in my life, but like I feel like people who have gone through like a pettiness sort of like thing where they need to prove something, or they just want to get something so bad, or they want to do something really bad and they do it despite everything that goes against it. You know, you can't help but like relate to all that hardship and get in like once you like, because I'm not gonna lie, in my younger years I've destroyed a lot of bridges for things that I felt very passionate about. And the like I'm not gonna get into spoilers, because at the end of the day, this list for me is like stuff I want you to watch, I want you to, you know, experience this media, because I think these are like very special, and like also the audience, like I really want you guys to experience media, so I won't spoil it all. But Villain Saga anime, which is on Amazon Prime right now, it's only in sub, but if you really want to watch arguably the top 5 revenge plots of all time for me, you need to watch Villain Saga. And then The Last of Us 2, of course, is a PlayStation exclusive, but HBO Max is doing a film. Yeah, I think
they are
a film or a TV series. I don't know which one it is, but they're doing The Last of Us 1, so it's not Last of Us 2, so it won't be the same plot. But if you have a PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, your friends, definitely play Last of Us 2, because it is a great revenge plot. Do you have any?
I remember a lot of people on like Twitter and such were talking about how they were crying playing that game.
Yeah,
I feel like that's rare.
Yeah, and it's like actually another thing that you remind me of now is that the community had a very mixed response to this game. Like, and it made me realize that, or maybe not realize, but it made me question, like, is the video game community just really like void of compassion or like empathy? Because oh my god. Well, actually, all right, I'm gonna go in. Do you ever plan on playing Last of Us 2?
I don't have a PlayStation, so I cannot actually.
Actually, you know what? We need to play it one day. I'll bring my PlayStation over one day. We're gonna binge Last of Us 2.
I'm with it actually.
I need you to experience that. But like I said, the game deals a lot with the theme of loss, and because of loss, you need to get revenge. And at the price of that story, the community lost a big character within the world of The Last of Us, world. And then for me, it's just like, can you not relate to that, or just like give just give a little bit of leeway to the creative decision to do something that bold for the sake of a better, or not better, but like for the sake of just storytelling? Because they could have gone like a very safe route and done like this super cookie cutter, like, event, and then they get revenge. We're all cool now. But the game is just not that. It is very, very, very messy. And I love that through the gameplay, you feel like, because you can hate it through the gameplay, but you have to realize through the storytelling that the character put herself in this position because of this anger, this rage, and the revenge that she wanted. And now you're in this super like 1 against 20 situation, because all you wanted to do was just get that revenge for that one person. And they just beautifully tell it throughout the whole series. But like I said, the video game community was very torn because of this one character that is now taken away. But I love it because once you do something that bold, it's just it goes beyond just being a game at that point, right? It's become a media that's, to me, it's going to be timeless because of how much it made me feel. But yeah,
I think it's impressive when a video game can do that, because I feel like video games are not, oftentimes it's just not a good medium for storytelling.
100%.
Like, that's just the truth. I remember Hideo Kojima famously said one time, video games are not art. And I disagree with that. As a matter of principle, I think any form of expression is art, even if most people look at that expression and say, wow, it's not very creative, it doesn't invoke emotion, whatever. But I think to a degree, he did have a point, because a lot of video games, it's so commercialized.
Right.
It feels more like a gambling thing than a storytelling device. And I feel like, we're kind of robbed of moments like that when these developers focus on making, the latest loot box title over something like that, like Metal Gear games, The Last of Us. I think some of the original Assassin's Creed, like, these were good, like, games with great stories, and I feel like that just isn't a thing
right.
anymore.
And it's just for the video game medium, it's like it's hard to strike that balance between getting the player to really invest in a game from the game to game like moment while also telling like a deep story. Because like I was playing Kingdom Hearts 3 like a few months ago, and like the story, like we all know, like the Kingdom Hearts story is just this grand like mixed match of different things, which is so convoluted. But like at the end of the day, I appreciate them wanting to tell a story. But the way that game tries to tell that story, like you'll literally play the game for like maybe 2 minutes and have a 20-minute cutscene of different ways that they want to tell the story. And it's like, for me, it's like, just pick what you want to do, right? Because at the end of the day, that's a movie. If you want to like tell a story through video, just give me a movie. Like, why am I sitting there with my controller in my hand, like making my hands feel very like just like tired now because I just had to experience the cutscenes. Like it just, so I had to cut that game off. I'm just like, this is not an experience I enjoy at all. But if they made a movie, I think there'll be something that's, you know, at least bearable.
Dude, I gotta push back on that. I really do.
Okay.
Like, as a Metal Gear fan, I will always defend cutscenes. Like, I remember when Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots came out, and it was panned by some gamers. And I'm not saying critics, because I think it had universal acclaim by critics, like 100% on Metacritic and whatnot, like most of those games got. But people were like, why am I watching a 2-hour-long cutscene? And for those that have played that game, that is actually very serious. Like, I'm talking 2-hour-long cutscenes, like little mini movies in the middle of the game. But it was amazing. Like, what gameplay it did have, I loved. And then when you get to those scenes, like they made sure, like Kojima made sure that it was directed with a lot of flair and pizzazz that, you know, made it slick, enjoyable to watch. Like you were still kind of playing the game because it felt, you know, so animated, but you were watching something, and the storytelling, like, my goodness, what? Like, Metal Gear Solid games have phenomenal stories because Hideo Kojima puts a lot of anti-war sentiment into stealth action games, which seems like an oxymoron, but you know, maybe a little bit hypocritical, but it's not. The point of the game is you don't kill people as much as possible. But, you know, people in Japan, like, they know the history of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and what the nuclear bombs were capable of. So the Metal Gear games are about nuclear weapons and war. And using cutscenes, he was able to put a lot of those themes into, like, flesh and blood, really, like, go through the implications of those weapons and warfare being in existence through video games. And I think that's absolutely amazing that can be accomplished. As a matter of fact, I don't think a Metal Gear Solid movie is going to work out so well. And I know they have one in development, but it's been in development for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So I know it's probably not going to be good.
See,
hard game to turn into the movie.
Where that story, where the cutscenes, where I can see that working with a Metal Gear game is that, you know, for some people they take that stealth aspect of the game very seriously. And I don't know between the Patriots game and Metal Gear Solid 5, because in 5 you can be kind of Rambo-ish. I don't know how that kind of translates back to, you know, all the way in the legacy Metal Gear games, but like those, I feel like stealth levels, if you're really trying to 100% stealth that, is that it can take you a minute. Like it take you a hot minute to do that. So getting like that longer cutscene might kind of balance out, but like I'm just so surprised because I just feel like a game, right? Like a video game needs to strike that balance between gameplay and cinematic. Because I'm not saying that cinematics need to be out of video games. It just needs to be, I feel like I need to be in that game loop, that moment to moment thing to like really appreciate a game. Because like it just takes me out of that experience completely. So like, yeah, I can't get into it like that.
I understand. I think it's definitely a to each his own kind of thing because it can be very cumbersome to, you know, get through a level. And I know it doesn't have levels in Metal Gear, but to get through a level in 5 minutes and then watch an hour of video is probably not the ideal for most people that are accustomed to what modern video games are, where you have the storytelling through gameplay. I think in most story-driven games now, like, people are feeding you dialogue as you're walking around or whatever.
Right, and like a perfect sentiment to that is 2018's God of War. Have you played that? Yeah, you know, you don't have a PlayStation.
No, but I actually watched the entire like game through
There you
YouTube.
go.
Like if you don't have the console, sometimes that's what you got to do so you're not
Right.
left out.
Uh-huh.
And also like how could you miss the hype that was around
God
that
of
game?
War,
It
yeah.
had untold levels of hype. It was crazy.
The way that they told the story in this very small blips of like taking you out of the game and having like going to like cutscene, but it's not really cutscene because like it's sort of like because sort of like in well, so there's a difference between cinematic cutscenes, which is probably what was in Patriots or Metal Gear Solid, like more cinematic looking cutscenes. But it literally just takes you out of like the control of your controller and just like zooms in the camera to where like they want you to show something. And I feel like God of War 2018 perfectly shows that because at the end of the game, when you finally like spread the mother's ashes across the valley, like it just takes you out of that moment for just a quick second, and you just see all of that like what you worked up to that journey for, and just because like literally that small little blip is like maybe only 20 seconds, and you're back to the game. That whole journey is just 20 seconds where it ends up, and then you have to go back to the house, and like the cutscene of like Thor coming down is like to set up Ragnarok. It's just that's how you do it in a video game to me. And I don't even think that Ragnarok or God of War 2018 was that great of a story, to be honest. But like I appreciate how they told the story through that, going from moment to moment, which is like, which is the majority of the game is actually playing the game and taking out for just those small seconds. Like especially like just reminiscing of the game now. It's like the scene where you realize that this actually isn't a reboot. He gets like the what's his like chains called? They have a specific name, but I forgot.
I do not recall. I can't remember.
Like that moment was so dope because right when like that maybe minute of a cutscene plays, like you're in gameplay, like using the chains again. It's like, oh my god, this is so dope. But yeah, like God of War is definitely a game that made me feel something at least. But just to wrap up my list, speaking of war and Metal Gear Solid. Have you heard of the anime called Attack on Titan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you seen any of it yet?
I saw it when I was very little. I want to say because my brother's a huge Attack on Titan fan, but me personally, I've never actually sat down to watch the whole show.
Okay. Yeah, that story, I've never felt a more intricate story. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but because I really want you to watch it. Because I know you would love it. I've actually wanted to recommend this to you for a long time because it deals with subjects that you're really into, and it does it in such like a top-down sort of way. Like when you get to the end season of Attack on Titan, you're gonna be like, how in the hell did the manga creator think so far in the future, but yet use those future elements to tell the story in the present? It's hard to tell without saying spoilers, but like if you love intricate stories that just make you like a 4D chess plot sort of story, you need to watch this anime because in my opinion it's the most, like I said, intricate piece of media I've ever seen in my life. Like it's just such a beautiful puzzle of like different things happening that all culminate to one thing so seamlessly. So yeah, Attack on Titan you need to watch for sure. And wrapping out my list, Naruto Part 1. Real quickly, the end of that season, the Naruto, like not Shippuden, so Naruto. Have you seen that? The whole thing?
No, but I've heard what you're about to say. Like the first season of Naruto is insane.
Yeah, it's like the final battle between Sasuke and Naruto is literally like watching, brothers in arms, like just. I'm kind of tearing up thinking about it. It's like you're just seeing these brothers like flip the switch and like they're fighting each other to like the death, and it's like I won't go into heavy spoilers, but like Naruto just looks at Sasuke like why are you killing your brother, or why do you want to kill your brother right now? And like it's just such a betrayal kind of way that you're just like, damn, like that, like you can just tell the hurt, and like because that's actually one of the great things about anime for me is like when the voice acting is just so on point, because like when the animation is very good and like you hear that animation or the voice like really sell the emotion, it's like. But yet again, I saw Naruto Part 1 during COVID, so like that like isolation with like no like human beings around and just seeing something that emotional, like I could not stop crying during that last few scenes. It's like it's perfect. And the last one, like you brought up this earlier, Interstellar. Like that,
wow.
Yeah, that movie, specifically the scene where they get to the first planet of their whole adventure, and they just royally screw it up. They get back on the ship, get back into like hyperspace, whatever.
Oh, dude, you're making me tear up now thinking about it. Oh no.
And then he gets the video of his like what was then like 5-year-old or like 7-year-old daughter, and now she's like 30. And then oh my god, I'm getting chills right now.
I'll think about it too. Yeah, that's a very powerful moment. Oh my god.
And then you just realize like just time is just running out. Like I've never felt like a scene where like you just felt time slipping from your hands, literally. Like you're just like they have to find some way to, but like, and then also in the back of your mind, you're just like, well, like, you know, like statistically, like by the end of their journey, like the people that they love are going to be dead. Like if it took that much time for one planet and they need to go to like 3 or whatever, they can't see the family.
That's so like such a painful thing to think about. You know, we're talking about like movies or TV or games that made us feel something. And I think it's so amazing that some emotions portrayed in film can be so powerful that you having no connection to it whatsoever can still feel that emotion. Like I'm not a dad. I'm not a 40-year-old middle-aged white male in a soulless marriage. But every time I watch American Beauty and Kevin Spacey is just like trying to come to terms with the point of life he's in, his wife's mean, she's a nag. His daughter is alienated from him. He like feels isolated and that he worked all his life to get to this point that he's just completely unhappy with, and he decides to stop giving a fuck and ultimately dies. Like, that's such a powerful thing. I'm not a dad. I'm not 40 years old, but every time I watch that film, I can't help but get caught up in the very emotions that he's portrayed as feeling, as if you had lived that life with him. And I think that's something that can be very powerful about the different forms of art as a medium, is you can connect people to something that they will never, hopefully, never experience themselves.
Right.
So I do kind of have a list ready for you.
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
All right. So the first one, outside of the second one, outside of Everything Everywhere All at Once, is Parasite. Also an Asian film, but this one wasn't Asian American. It was a South Korean film. And the reason I connected to that film so much is that film is 100% about class dynamics.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in that film where they are partying at this rich family's house while they're away on like a little mini vacation, and they're getting to live the affluent life, this poorer family. And they end up being there when the family comes home because it was raining, so they have to quickly clean up and hide. And the father and mother hide under the table that the rich family ends up like laying down next to, and they hear their conversation and they talk about how they smell. And like, to me, that was like so fucking, excuse me, but it was so painful to hear, because I remember reading one time that Kim Kardashian said that everybody's breath stinks. And I remember like thinking like, why in the world would everybody's breath smell bad to you? Like, that's a wild concept. Until I realized like most working class individuals, even if you're brushing 2-3 times a day, you aren't going to the dentist every month or 2 months or 3 months. You aren't getting your entire like teeth collection replaced with veneers that cost about $1,000 a pop. You aren't getting like pretty much the dentist at home because you do not have that levels of wealth. So yeah, somebody that is, because of their wealth, has essentially discovered the new form of bathing. Like, yeah, I'm sure like us plebs would smell bad to them. And that was like so hurtful, because you realize like the reason they smell bad is they were just regular people.
Right.
And like, it reminded me whenever I was younger in school, and there was like that smelly kid in class, right? Like, I'm sure everybody remembers that one kid that smelled bad. And I thought about that kid from class. I was like, okay, why did they smell bad? And I remember that kid was poor. Like, that kid did not have regular access to his parents being able to wash his clothes for him. He didn't have regular access to going to the dentist once a year. So whenever you don't have like regular body soap, shampoo, you're going to smell different than other people. You're going to smell like your house, which maybe hasn't been cleaned because cleaning products are unaffordable when you're prioritizing food. And that film was so raw and real to me because of that. Because that's something I feel like personally I struggle for a lot is for people that are of the working class and like their needs in life. And I feel like that's not depicted a lot in movies in such a raw sense that is completely real. That you hear that line and maybe you're watching the movie and you're like, oh, well, they, take the subway and they actually just had like sewage explode into their house. So yeah, they smell bad because of that. But then you realize the only reason they had sewage spill into their house is because they were regular people and it rained. And the way their apartment/house was designed, they got the brunt end of the stick. And in the very next scene, after going through that, honestly, like mental turmoil of hearing about how little you are compared to these affluent people, the dad is driving the rich mom home and she's talking about what a blessing it was that it rained. The rain that just destroyed their lives, destroyed their home. And she's like, oh my goodness, like thank God it rained yesterday. And it showed just how detached like the wealthy are from like regular people.
Right.
I think that's like a powerful thing. I will never forget that film. If it wasn't for Everything Everywhere All at Once, I would say that's the greatest film ever made. But it's not anymore. It only took like 2 years. I'm actually happy about that.
Yeah.
Because the next one is Pan's Labyrinth, or for people that speak Spanish, they know it as The Labyrinth of the Faun.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, Pan's Labyrinth is it's a fairy tale for grown-ups. And the reason I felt something from that film, or what I did feel, is beauty. Like, it's such a dark film. It really is. It's about the anti-fascist fighting the fascists in Spain during World War II, during the Spanish Civil War. And you recognize like the hope for these characters does not exist because the fascists actually won in the Spanish Civil War. So what they're fighting for isn't going to be a thing. And it depicts this daughter that's like, I don't know, I compare her to like innocence personified.
Yeah. Like
she's having to live in this fascist general's house who's very oppressive, dictatorial, and she's just trying to escape. And she finds out she's a princess and she has like a magical destiny to fulfill like these 3 tasks, in keeping with fairy tale lore. And that film will stick out to me forever as something that's almost like Edgar Allan Poe in the modern sense personified. It's a dark Gothic fairy tale, but the beauty of it, the majesty of the makeup, the props, the set design, like it can't be beat. Like, sorry, Marvel and Disney with your CGI like fascinations right now, or Avatar, all that crap. Like, CGI can be good, but like, let's get real. Makeup, set design, like that always was real, and it makes you feel something real whenever it's done like to perfection, like that film did.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually my list. I kept it to 3.
Okay.
I think it's kind of interesting that all of them are foreign films, though. Well, foreign if you're in the U.S.
Right.
But Pan's Labyrinth was, I think, shot in Mexico, obviously by a Spanish-speaking director, Guillermo del Toro, and Parasite's from South Korea. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is American, just Asian American.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it was filmed externally to the U.S., if I recall correctly.
Right.
But anyway.
Awesome.
Those are 3 films that made me feel something.